Welcome back to Not the Right, where we dive into the stories that challenge what we know, what we believe, and sometimes what we wish weren't true. I'm Natasha, and today we're going to discuss something that, honestly, I think we've all heard about, but maybe haven't fully confronted as a society. We're going to talk about the US justice system, the Catholic Church, and how accountability seems like a distant concept when it comes to some of the most horrifying abuse scandals we've ever seen. For decades, the Catholic Church has been at the center of accusations. No, not just accusations, but well-documented, deeply investigated cases of child molestation, child rape, and the systematic cover-up of these abuses. It's not just isolated incidents. We're talking about a pattern of abuse that spans continents, crosses state lines, and exists at every level of the church. And yet, here we are. The US justice system is fully aware of what has been happening. It's not like these cases have been hidden in the shadows, away from public scrutiny. We've had explosive exposés, documentaries, survivors coming forward with heart-wrenching testimonies, and independent investigations. There's enough documentation to bury any organization. But the question we need to ask ourselves today is, why isn't the Vatican being held accountable? It's mind-boggling, right? If this were any other organization, if this were a company, a school, or a non-religious or secular charity, would the justice system be this hesitant? Would they just sit by and allow the cycle to continue? Would they let those responsible stay in power, let alone shuffle them around to other places where they can re-offend? I'm talking about an institution that not only enabled these abusers, but actively worked to protect them. We've seen evidence of Catholic Church leadership moving priests from one parish to another when allegations arise, often without even telling the new communities what's happened. This isn't speculation. This is documented fact. And yet, silence. Let's make one thing clear. The justice system knows. There are legal documents, sealed settlements, grand jury reports, entire libraries of evidence proving that the Catholic Church has failed to protect children, and in many cases actively shielded perpetrators from legal consequences. And where's the accountability? The Vatican is an independent state, yes, but that doesn't exempt it from human decency or moral responsibility, let alone legal accountability. I get it. Religion is a deeply personal and emotional subject for many people, and the Catholic Church, in particular, holds a significant place in history. But does that make them untouchable? Does that mean they get to skirt responsibility for enabling a culture of abuse? Should the justice system be afraid to step in because of what the Catholic Church represents to millions of people? At what point do we stop making excuses and start demanding justice? Let's not forget, real people, real children have been harmed. Their lives have been shattered. And it's not just the physical abuse, it's the lifelong emotional and psychological trauma. Survivors carry this with them forever. And many never get the closure they deserve because the Catholic Church and the justice system keep playing a game of deflection and delay. And then there's the Vatican itself, the ultimate authority. The fact that the US justice system hasn't held the Vatican accountable is telling. We know the influence the Church has worldwide, but that shouldn't translate into immunity from consequences. Just because the Vatican is its own state doesn't mean it's free from international pressure. The US could take action, could demand answers, but it hasn't. Some might say it's about diplomacy or respecting international relations. But is diplomacy worth the lives of children? Is maintaining a cordial relationship with the Vatican more important than protecting future generations from abuse? Because, make no mistake, this isn't just about what happened in the past. This is about what's still happening. And yet, here we are. There are many people out there, survivors, advocates, and even some clergy, who have been fighting for justice for decades. Their voices have been loud, and they have done everything they can to bring this to light. But until the system itself decides to act, we're left with a cycle of abuse and cover-up that seems almost impossible to break. So, where do we go from here? How do we, as a society, push for real accountability, not just for the individual priests or bishops who committed these atrocities, but for the institution that allowed it to happen? How do we make the Vatican, as an entity, face consequences? These are hard questions, but they're ones we need to be asking. Because this isn't just about religion or faith or tradition, it's about justice. And if the justice system isn't willing to step up, then what are we saying about ourselves? That some institutions, some people, are just too powerful to be held accountable? I don't have all the answers, but I think we need to keep asking the hard questions. We need to keep the pressure on, not just for the survivors, but for the future, for the kids who are still vulnerable, for the communities still at risk. That's it for today's episode of Not the Right. Thank you for listening, and as always, I encourage you to keep questioning, keep pushing, and keep demanding justice. We'll be back next week with another story that challenges the way we see the world. Until then, stay safe and stay informed.